The sound of rain tapped softly on the window as Lena sat on the couch, staring at the piano in the corner of the room. The keys were covered in a thin layer of dust. It had been months since she had touched it. She used to play every day, before the recital, before everything went wrong. Now even looking at it made her stomach tighten. Her mother stood in the kitchen, drying dishes, watching her carefully. "You should play again," she said gently, as she always did. "You can't let one bad day stop you, sweetheart." Lena shook her head. "You don't understand, Mom. I embarrassed myself in front of everyone. I froze. I can't do that again." Her voice cracked at the last word, and she quickly looked away. The memory still burned. The spotlight, the silent crowd, her trembling hands, and the wrong notes echoing through the hall. That single moment had crushed her confidence. She had walked off the stage that day and promised herself never to play again. Outside, the rain slowed and the sound of footsteps echoed from next door. It was Mr. Carter, their neighbor. He was an older man who lived alone, a quiet person with silver hair and kind eyes. People in the neighborhood said he used to be a concert pianist a long time ago, but he rarely talked about it. Sometimes when the windows were open, Lena could hear him playing softly at night, melodies so smooth and emotional that they made her stop whatever she was doing just to listen. That afternoon, he knocked on their door. Her mother greeted him with a smile. "Oh, Mr. Carter. Come in out of the rain." He nodded politely and stepped inside. "Thank you. I just came to return your baking dish," he said, handing it over. Then his eyes drifted toward the corner of the living room, to the dusty piano. "You play?" he asked, turning to Lena. She hesitated. "I used to," she said quietly. He studied her for a moment, then smiled a little. "Used to? That's a sad thing to say for someone so young. Music doesn't leave us, you know." "We leave it." Lena gave a small, awkward laugh. "I guess I left it for good." Her mother sighed and shook her head. "She's just lost her confidence since the school recital. She won't even touch it anymore." Mr. Carter nodded slowly, as if he understood more than she had said. "Ah, the fear of mistakes. It ruins more artists than failure ever could." Then he looked at Lena again. "Come by tomorrow. I'd like to hear you play something." Lena blinked, startled. "Me? No, I can't. I'm not good anymore." "Good has nothing to do with it," he said calmly. "Just come." And before she could argue, he was already putting on his coat, thanking her mother, and leaving. That night, Lena lay awake, replaying his words in her head. "Come by tomorrow?" She didn't understand why it bothered her so much. He probably wouldn't care how she played. But still, something about the calm way he said it made her feel like refusing would be wrong. The next afternoon, she found herself walking next door. She almost turned back twice, but her curiosity pushed her forward. His house was old but neat, with tall windows and shelves full of books and music sheets. The faint smell of coffee and old paper filled the air. Mr. Carter was sitting in a chair by the window when she arrived. "Ah, you came," he said with a smile. "Good, the piano's waiting." She laughed nervously. "You really meant it?" "Of course," he said. "Sit down. Play whatever you remember." Lena slowly walked toward the piano. It was beautiful, larger than hers at home, shining under the soft afternoon light. The bench creaked slightly as she sat. Her hands hovered over the keys, but she didn't press any. Her chest tightened again. She could feel her heart racing. "I can't," she said softly. "I forgot how." He chuckled gently. "You didn't forget. You're just scared. Try one note, just one." She took a deep breath and pressed a single key. The sound filled the room, deep and pure. It surprised her how alive it sounded. She tried another, then a few more, until a small melody started to form. Her fingers remembered more than her mind did. "See?" he said quietly. "The music's still there." For a few seconds she almost smiled, until the memory of her recital hit her again. The sound of laughter, the pitying looks, her frozen fingers. Her hand stopped moving. "No," she said, shaking her head. "You don't get it. I ruined everything. I don't want to feel that again." He leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. "Tell me," he said softly, "what did you want from that performance?" She frowned. "I wanted to do it right, to make everyone proud." He nodded. "And when you played wrong, you thought you failed them?" "Yes," she whispered. He leaned back, his eyes thoughtful. "Let me tell you something. I played in front of thousands once. I made mistakes too. But do you know what I learned?" He paused, letting the moment sink in. Perfection is cold. People don't remember perfect notes. They remember the feeling you give them, the truth in your music. Lena looked at him, unsure how to respond. The truth? Yes, when you play, don't think about impressing people. Think about what made you love the song in the first place. That's where real music lives. She stared down at the piano keys again. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, without looking up, she whispered, I used to play Claire de Lune. It was my favorite. Mr. Carter's expression softened. A beautiful choice. Try it. Her throat felt tight. No, I can't. I'll mess up. Then mess up, he said simply. No one here will care. Lena hesitated, then placed her fingers in position. The first notes came out shaky and unsure, but she kept going, the melody slowly forming. For a few seconds, the world outside disappeared. Just her, the piano, and the quiet sound of Mr. Carter listening. When she hit a wrong note, she flinched and stopped. See, I told you, she muttered, frustrated. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then softly he said, Do you know why that wrong note bothered you? Because you're still trying to be perfect. Don't chase perfection, chase truth. The room went silent after that. Lena looked at him, confused. But something about his tone stayed with her, gentle but full of meaning. She pressed another key, slower this time. The melody started again, faint and trembling, but real. When she finished, she looked up, embarrassed. I told you it wasn't good. He smiled, shaking his head. It was honest. That's better than good. She didn't know what to say. No one had ever said that to her before. She felt something shift inside, something small, like the first spark of hope after a long darkness. When she stood to leave, he said quietly, Come back tomorrow. We'll try again. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to say it was useless. But instead she nodded. Okay, she said softly. As she stepped out into the cool evening air, she realized her hands weren't shaking anymore. The sound of the piano still echoed in her ears. Not the perfect version she used to chase, but something deeper, something she hadn't felt in a long time. That night, she sat by her own piano at home. Her mother peeked in, surprised to see her lifting the cover. Lena looked up, smiled faintly, and said, I think I'll practice a little. Her mother didn't say a word. She just stood there, tears in her eyes, as the first quiet notes filled the room. For the first time in months, Lena didn't care about playing the right notes. She just wanted to play, and that was enough. The next afternoon, Lena found herself walking toward Mr. Carter's house again. The sky was gray and the air smelled faintly of wet leaves from the morning rain. She had tried to convince herself not to go, but the memory of the music from yesterday stayed with her. The way it had felt to play honestly, not perfectly, had left a small warmth in her chest she couldn't ignore. When she reached the door, it opened before she could even knock. Mr. Carter was standing there as if he had been expecting her. Come in, he said. His smile was gentle, welcoming. The piano has been waiting. She stepped inside, her fingers brushing the banister. The house smelled the same as yesterday. Coffee, old books, and a hint of polished wood. It felt safe here, quiet in a way that made her forget her worries for a little while. He led her to the piano. Its polished black surface gleamed under the soft afternoon light coming from the window. Lena hesitated, hovering over the keys like a bird, unsure of where to land. Do you remember the piece you tried yesterday? He asked. Yes, she said quietly. Her hands instinctively moved toward the notes, tracing the melody in the air. Good. We'll start there, he said. No pressure. Just play. Lena sat down, her fingers trembling. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to recall the feeling of the song instead of the notes. She took a deep breath and pressed the first key. It sounded small, almost fragile, but it was hers. She continued, slowly at first, each note built on the last. Her hands remembered the movements, the curves, and the pauses, even when her mind doubted herself. She hit a wrong note and froze. Stop, she whispered. I ruined it already. No, he said softly. You didn't ruin anything. Let it be wrong. Let it be real. That's what matters. She looked at him, unsure. But then something shifted inside. She tried again, ignoring the mistake this time. The wrong note sounded just like it was supposed to. A little imperfect, a little human. She kept going, and slowly a melody began to flow. Mr. Carter didn't say anything. He just listened. And for the first time, Lena realized that listening mattered more than playing perfectly. She felt the music in the room, felt it connect them without words. When she finished, she sat back, her hands shaking slightly. I don't know if it's any good, she admitted. He smiled. It's more than good. It's honest. And that honesty reaches people in ways perfection never will. Lena didn't know what to say. She felt a strange mix of pride and relief. No one had ever told her that her music could be enough just as it was. Now, he said after a pause, let's try something new. Her eyes widened. New? I'm not ready for new. You are, he said firmly but kindly. You just don't know it yet. He handed her a sheet of music. It was a simple song but full of gentle ups and downs. Lena studied it, feeling nervous. She could read the notes, but the song seemed unfamiliar, almost intimidating. Start slowly, he instructed. Don't worry about speed. Don't worry about mistakes. Feel it. She nodded and placed her fingers on the keys. The first notes sounded unsure, uneven, but gradually as she played, they grew steadier. She closed her eyes, letting the music guide her. Halfway through, she stumbled. Her fingers fumbled over a chord and the sound was harsh. She stopped, feeling a familiar panic rising. Breathe, he said calmly. Let go of control. Let the music happen, not the other way around. She tried to follow his advice, taking a deep breath. Slowly, she played again. This time, she didn't stop at the mistakes. She let them be part of the song. And something magical happened. The music began to feel alive. It moved and flowed in a way she hadn't felt in years. She opened her eyes and noticed Mr. Carter leaning back, watching her with a gentle expression. There was no judgment in his eyes, only understanding. Lena felt a warmth in her chest. She realized she wasn't performing for anyone. She was just playing. When the song ended, silence filled the room. She looked at him, heart pounding. Did it sound okay? She asked softly. It sounded like you, he said. That's all that matters. Lena smiled faintly, a little embarrassed but happy. The words made her feel light, almost like a weight had lifted from her shoulders. She wanted to play more but also felt tired. Her fingers tingled from the effort, but the sensation was pleasant, like a reminder of something she had almost forgotten. Tomorrow, he said, standing, we'll do more. I want you to feel the story in every song, not just play the notes. That's when music truly comes alive. She nodded again. She didn't fully understand what he meant yet, but she trusted him. Somehow she knew he was right. That evening, Lena walked home slowly, her backpack heavy but her heart light. She thought about the music, the sound of the keys under her fingers and the way Mr. Carter listened without ever judging her. She realized how much she had missed this connection, the feeling that music was not just about being perfect, but about sharing something real. At home, she couldn't stop thinking about the sheet of music he had given her. She sat on her bed with it in her lap, tracing the notes with her fingers. Each one felt like a small invitation to try again, to trust herself, to feel. Her mother peeked in. Still thinking about it? She asked softly. Lena nodded. I want to practice. Just a little. Her mother smiled, and for the first time, Lena didn't feel scared of disappointing her. She felt ready to try, even if it wasn't perfect. The next few days followed a similar rhythm. Lena would walk next door, sometimes with a sense of dread, sometimes with excitement. Each time she would sit at the piano and play, learning new songs, experimenting, letting herself make mistakes. Each mistake became less frightening, each melody more alive. Mr. Carter never pressured her. He would guide her with quiet words, sometimes just a look, encouraging her to explore the music in her own way. Slowly, she felt her confidence returning, not the brittle kind that only cared about being perfect, but a quiet, steady confidence in herself and in her ability to connect with music. One afternoon, he asked her to play a song from memory and no sheet music. Lena hesitated. I might forget, she said. Then forget, he replied. That's part of the story. Music is not a photograph. It's alive. Let it breathe. She closed her eyes and began. At first the melody wavered, but then her fingers found the notes she knew. She let her feelings guide her, and the song grew fuller, richer. She noticed Mr. Carter leaning slightly forward, eyes soft, listening closely. When she finished, she looked up at him. He smiled, almost as if he had been waiting for this moment. That, he said quietly, was beautiful. Not because it was perfect, but because it was yours. That's the only kind of beauty that matters. Lena felt something swell inside her. Pride, yes, but also a deep gratitude. For the first time in a long time, she felt proud of herself, not for being perfect, but for being brave enough to try. She realized that she had been holding herself back for years, afraid of mistakes. afraid of failing. And in those few afternoons at Mr. Carter's house, she was learning to let go of fear. She was learning to trust herself, to trust the music, and to trust that imperfections could be beautiful too. By the time she walked home that evening, the sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow over the streets. She felt light, almost as if she was walking on air. She knew that she had only just begun, that there was so much more to learn. But she also knew something important. The joy of playing wasn't in being perfect, it was in being real. And for Lena, that realization was more powerful than any applause, more meaningful than any perfect performance. For the first time in years, she looked forward to tomorrow, to the piano, to the music, and to the quiet, steady thrill of rediscovering herself. The following week, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: excitement. As she walked toward Mr. Carter's house, her steps were lighter than usual. She had been practicing every day at home, not for perfection, but because she wanted to feel the music again. The piano had become less of a test and more of a friend, a place where she could express what she felt inside. When she arrived, the familiar smell of old books and polished wood greeted her. Mr. Carter was already there, sitting near the piano, a soft smile on his face. "Good to see you," he said warmly. "Are you ready for today?" "I think so," she replied, though her stomach fluttered nervously. She wasn't sure what he meant by ready, but something in his calm voice made her trust that it would be worth it. He handed her a sheet of music. It was different from what she had practiced before, more challenging, with notes that moved in unexpected directions and rhythms she wasn't used to. Lena looked at it, feeling a familiar wave of fear. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. "You can," he said simply. "But don't think about doing it right. Think about feeling it." She sat at the piano and placed her fingers on the keys. For a moment, she just stared at the notes. They seemed complicated, almost intimidating. But she remembered his words: "Feel it." She took a deep breath and pressed the first key. The sound filled the room. It was not perfect, not even close, but it had a voice. She moved to the next note, letting her fingers follow the melody rather than her fear. Slowly, the song began to take shape. Halfway through, she hit a wrong chord. Her hands froze. Panic rose, threatening to take over. "I can't do this," she said. "Stop," he said softly. "Stop blaming yourself. Let it happen. The wrong notes are part of the story. Without them, it's just empty sound." Lena closed her eyes. She remembered the mistakes she had made in the past, the embarrassment, the shame. But instead of trying to push them away, she let herself feel them. She pressed the keys again, allowing the music to include the mistakes. And to her surprise, it sounded better. Somehow, the imperfection made the melody alive, real and moving. When she finished, she opened her eyes. Mr. Carter was leaning back, watching her quietly. She felt exposed, as if she had shared a piece of herself she had kept hidden for years. "That was wonderful," he said, his voice soft but filled with sincerity. "Do you see? You made it yours. Not perfect, but yours, and that's what people feel." Lena felt warmth spread through her chest. She didn't need applause or praise. Just knowing she could express herself again was enough. "Let's try something else," he said, handing her another sheet of music. This one looked simpler, but Lena knew it would challenge her in different ways. It was not about speed or complexity, but about emotion. As she played, Mr. Carter guided her gently. Sometimes he would adjust her hand position. Sometimes he would ask her to close her eyes and imagine the story behind the song. Lena found herself thinking about the images he suggested: a quiet, rainy evening, a small garden at sunrise, a child laughing in the distance. The music began to carry those images, and she felt the melody transform under her fingers. For the first time, she noticed how much she had missed this connection, not just playing notes, but telling a story through sound. She realized that music could be more than entertainment. It could be a conversation between her and anyone who listened, even if it was just Mr. Carter in that quiet room. Hours seemed to pass without notice. When she finally stopped to stretch her fingers, she realized she had been smiling without realizing it. She felt lighter, freer, and more confident than she had in months. "You're improving faster than I expected," Mr. Carter said with a gentle chuckle. "Not because you are practicing perfectly, but because you are learning to listen. That's what matters most." Lena laughed softly. "I never thought listening could matter more than playing the right notes." "It does," he said. "Music is not just sound. It's feeling, thought, and intention. If you play with your heart, people feel it. If you play with your mind only, people hear the notes but they don't feel the story. She nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. For so long she had focused only on doing things right, on memorizing every note, on avoiding mistakes. But in trying to be perfect, she had lost the joy of playing. Today, for the first time in years, she felt that joy return. "Can I ask you something?" she said hesitantly. "Of course. Did you ever feel scared when you played in front of people?" He smiled faintly, his eyes distant as if recalling an old memory. "Every time. Even in the biggest halls with thousands of people watching, I felt scared. The trick is not to let the fear stop you. The trick is to let the fear become part of the music." Lena considered this as she looked at the keys. It made sense in a way that was simple but powerful. Fear didn't have to stop her. It could guide her, give the music depth, make it real. After another hour, she finally stopped to rest. She leaned back on the piano bench, her hands tired but her spirit renewed. She realized how much she had grown in just a few days. The music was no longer something she feared. It was a part of her, something she could touch, shape, and share. Mr. Carter watched her quietly. "You know," he said, "people often think that talent is about skill, but skill without heart is empty. You're learning something far more important, to play with honesty, with feeling. That is what makes a musician." Lena felt a lump in her throat. She had never thought of herself as a musician before. She had thought of herself as someone who had failed. But now, under Mr. Carter's gentle guidance, she began to see herself differently. That evening, on her way home, she thought about everything she had learned. Each note she played today had felt alive, connected, and true. She realized she no longer feared mistakes in the same way. She could make a wrong note and keep going, letting it become part of the story. She felt as if a door had opened inside her, letting in something she had forgotten existed. Hope. At home, she found herself drawn to her own piano again. She didn't have a specific song in mind. She just wanted to play, to feel the keys beneath her fingers, to let the music tell its own story. She played for a long time, experimenting with melodies, letting her emotions guide her hands. The notes were imperfect, uneven at times, but the music felt alive. Her mother peeked in once and smiled quietly. "I see you found your music again," she said softly. "Yes," Lena whispered. I think it was waiting for me all along." That night, as she lay in bed, Lena realized something important. Music was not just a skill or a performance. It was a way to understand herself, a way to feel, and a way to connect with others. The piano had become a mirror, showing her strength she had forgotten and giving her courage to face fear without letting it control her. The next few days followed a similar rhythm. Each afternoon at Mr. Carter's house was a small adventure. Some days she struggled with new songs, feeling frustrated and doubtful. Other days she discovered melodies that made her heart soar. Each time Mr. Carter was there, offering quiet guidance, encouragement, and wisdom. One afternoon he asked her to play without stopping, no matter what mistakes she made. Lena hesitated. "I don't think I can do that," she said. "You can," he said firmly. "Don't fight the music. Don't fight yourself. Let it flow." She took a deep breath and began. At first she stumbled, her hands unsure, her mind racing. But then she remembered everything he had taught her. To feel, to listen, to embrace imperfection. Slowly she let the music flow through her, letting her emotions shape every note. The room seemed to hold its breath, the piano singing under her fingers. When she finally stopped, she was breathless, exhilarated, and a little afraid of the silence. Mr. Carter's eyes glimmered with approval. "That," he said softly, "was more than music. That was honesty. That's what people remember." Lena smiled, tears threatening to fall. She realized she had discovered something far greater than skill or technique. She had found her voice, her connection to music, and more importantly, to herself. Walking home that evening, she felt lighter than ever. Each step seemed to carry the echo of the melodies she had played, the mistakes she had embraced, and the stories she had told without words. She knew she had come a long way, and yet, she also knew this was only the beginning. For Lena, music had become more than notes on a page. It had become a path to courage, joy, and freedom, and in Mr. Carter's quiet, patient way, he had helped her find it again. The next morning, Lena woke up with a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. Today felt different, though she couldn't put her finger on why. Maybe it was because she had begun to feel the music in a way she never had before. Maybe it was because she realized that each time she played, she learned something new, not just about music, but about herself. She walked to Mr. Carter's house with a spring in her step. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of wet grass and faint sunlight. As she approached the door, she could see him through the window, arranging some music sheets on the piano. He looked up, and when he saw her, a warm smile spread across his face. "Good morning," he said. "Are you ready for today's challenge?" Lena hesitated. "Challenge," he nodded. "Yes, today I want you to play something completely by yourself. No instructions, no sheet music. Just you and the piano." Her stomach fluttered. The thought of improvising terrified her. She had always relied on notes and guidance, never trusting herself to create something entirely new. I don't know if I can," she admitted. "You can," he said calmly. "You've been learning to listen, to feel the music. Today, you'll let that feeling guide you. Trust it, trust yourself." Lena took a deep breath. Her fingers hovered over the keys, unsure where to start. The silence in the room seemed louder than any music. She felt the familiar tug of fear, but she also felt the excitement she had been craving. Slowly, she pressed the first key. It sounded small, hesitant, but it was hers. She added another and another, letting her hands move instinctively. The melody began to form, fragile and uneven, but full of emotion. Mr. Carter didn't say a word. He just listened, his eyes soft and encouraging. Lena felt a strange mix of vulnerability and freedom. She didn't have to be perfect. She didn't have to follow rules. She just had to let the music flow from her heart. As she played, the melody shifted. Sometimes it was quiet and reflective. Sometimes it rose with sudden energy. She allowed herself to explore, to experiment, to make mistakes. Each wrong note didn't feel wrong anymore. Each pause and stumble became part of the story she was telling. When she finally stopped, the room was filled with silence. Lena's heart pounded in her chest. She looked at Mr. Carter, unsure of what he would say. "That," he said softly, "was more than music. That was you. Every note, every pause, every mistake, it was honest. That's what makes music unforgettable." Lena felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time, she realized that her own creativity, her own feelings could create something beautiful. It wasn't about being perfect or following rules. It was about being herself. "Can I do it again?" she asked quietly, almost afraid to hope. "Of course," he replied. "Play as much as you like, explore, make mistakes. Find the music in yourself." And so she played again. The melody this time was bolder, freer. Her confidence was growing, and her fingers moved with more certainty. She experimented with rhythms, tried unusual chords, and even hummed along with the notes. The music felt alive, like it had a heartbeat of its own. Mr. Carter watched, smiling quietly. He didn't interrupt, didn't correct her. He knew she needed to find her own voice. He had given her tools, guidance, and patience, but the music was hers to discover. Hours passed without Lena realizing it. The sun shifted in the sky, casting long shadows across the room. Her hands were tired, but she didn't want to stop. Each time she played, she learned something new, about rhythm, about melody, about feeling. Eventually, she sat back, breathless and exhilarated. "I didn't know I could do that," she said softly. "You did," he replied. "And now you know. That's the power of trusting yourself. Music is not about notes on a page. It's about the story you tell, the emotion you share, the truth you express." Lena nodded slowly. She realized that she had been holding herself back for years, afraid of mistakes, afraid of judgment. But here at the piano, she was free. The fear had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled her. She could channel it into the music, let it become part of the story she was telling. "Can I ask you something?" she said hesitantly. "Of course," he replied. "Do you ever get tired of music? I mean, doesn't it get boring after a while?" He laughed softly, a warm, quiet sound. "Never. Music is endless. Every time you play, it's different. Every time you feel something new, the music changes. That's what makes it alive. That's why it never gets boring." Lena thought about that. She had always seen music as rules and notes and repetition, but now she realized it was something living, something that could grow and change with her. It was not a task to complete, but a journey to explore. That afternoon, Mr. Carter suggested a small experiment. He asked her to play a song she knew well, but to change it as she went. Twist the rhythm, add new notes, pause unexpectedly. Lena hesitated, afraid to alter something familiar. But he encouraged her. reminding her that there were no wrong choices in creativity. She began slowly, playing the familiar notes. Then she added something new, a small variation in rhythm. At first it felt strange, even wrong, but as she continued, the melody transformed, richer and more expressive than before. She found herself laughing quietly at the joy of discovery. "This is incredible," she said breathlessly. "Not incredible," he said. "Yours, you made it yours." That's the difference. Lena realized he was right. She had spent so much of her life trying to play music exactly as it was written, trying to please others, trying not to make mistakes. But when she allowed herself to explore, to trust her own instincts, the music became real. It became hers. Days passed like this, each one a small adventure. Lena experimented with melodies, rhythms, and emotions. She practiced at home, improvising and playing without fear. She began to notice how music was shaping her in other ways too, giving her patience, courage, and a new perspective on life. One evening, she played a long, winding melody, closing her eyes and letting the music take her wherever it wanted. She realized she was no longer thinking about mistakes. She was thinking only about the story she wanted to tell. And in that moment, she felt complete. The music was no longer a challenge or a test. It was a reflection of herself, her thoughts, and her emotions. Mr. Carter watched quietly, a soft smile on his face. "You've come a long way," he said. "Not because you memorized notes, but because you learned to listen." That is the heart of music. Lena felt a swell of gratitude. She realized that what she had learned here went far beyond the piano. She had learned to trust herself, to embrace imperfection, and to find joy in creation. She had learned that mistakes were not failures, but opportunities to discover something new. That night, as she walked home under the soft glow of streetlights, Lena thought about how far she had come. She felt proud of herself in a way she had never experienced before. She wasn't just playing notes anymore. She was expressing herself, sharing her feelings, and discovering her own voice. At home, she returned to her piano, unable to resist. She played late into the night, experimenting, improvising, and letting the music carry her. She felt alive, connected, and free. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was a mirror, reflecting her courage, her creativity, and her heart. For the first time, Lena realized that music was not about being perfect or following rules. It was about expression, emotion, and honesty. It was about finding her own voice and sharing it with the world, and she knew deep down that this was only the beginning. The next day, she returned to Mr. Carter's house with a quiet confidence. She no longer feared mistakes. She no longer doubted herself. She knew that every note she played, whether perfect or flawed, was part of her story. And that story, she realized, was beautiful. The following morning, Lena felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement. Today was different. She wasn't sure exactly why, but something told her that everything she had learned was about to come together. Her fingers itched to touch the piano, and her heart beat faster with anticipation. As she walked up the familiar path to Mr. Carter's house, she took a deep breath of the crisp morning air. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden glow over the garden. For a moment she paused and let herself simply enjoy the quiet beauty around her. Music, she realized, had taught her to notice small details, to feel emotions in the tiniest of moments. She smiled at the thought. When she entered the house, Mr. Carter was waiting. He was seated near the piano, his hands folded calmly, his expression unreadable. Lena felt a flutter of nervousness.